What was it that first got you off the continent? And was there a band that took you out somewhere that made it easier for you? Did you guys finally just like save up enough money to be like, we're going, let's do this? Or what was it that got you off the continent for the first
A
time?
combination of everything. Like we originally like essentially toured Australia until we couldn't tour Australia anymore.
Mm.
Like when we were starting out, it would have like between 2003 and 2005, we just constantly toured Australia, and we watched like our scene go from maximum like 300 people at a show to like I think the shows that we did at the end of it was like there was like 1,200 people, and that was the biggest headlining show that anyone had ever seen of an Australian band in our country. Um, so it wasn't massive, but we played everywhere, and we're like, if we keep playing, people are going to get sick of it. So why don't we try and go overseas? And we had a few connections, like we'd taken Himsa out on tour over in Australia, and they were like, "We'll get you some gigs if you come over, and we'll do a
Himsa?
run around California." Yeah, Himsa.
I haven't heard. Oh, we did shows with them way back when. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
they were a
Blast from the
great fucking
past.
band.
Yeah, yeah. So those guys, like, we hooked up with like we toured with Bleeding Through over here. So like we stayed with Bleeding Through.
Brandon Chipetti's like one of our good
Yeah,
friends, man. Yeah, it's
yeah. There you
funny.
go, man. Like that's
Small
it.
world.
Like love those guys, like and girls. But yeah, it's they helped us out when we got to the States, and we managed to piece together a tour in the UK with like a small Welsh band to get us there. And basically, what we did was like borrow money off my parents to buy around the world tickets because like we couldn't afford to like continent hop. So we're just like we're going away for 6 months, and we're just going to try and do gigs. Like we out of 6 months, we had possibly 20 dates lined up across everywhere else in the world, and the rest of it was like just try and figure it out. Like I guess when we came from nothing here in terms of no prospects, you kind of have to make your own way in the first place. We're like, well, if we've done it in Australia, let's just try and do it everywhere else, and that's the way we rolled with it. Really, it was a very interesting way to approach it because like we touched down in the UK for the first time, and essentially we went on tour for like 2.5 weeks, and then after that we're like, now what do we do? Now what do you do? You're on the other
What
side
did
of
you
the
do? Did
world.
you were you able to come back with those round ticket flights, or did you have to find a place to
Yeah,
go
well,
hang?
essentially what happened was we started just putting feelers out there and just trying to, from the small connections we made there, we were able to jump on a couple of shows, and then our current booking agent in Europe, Avocado Bookings, like they were a small group at that point in time, and Marco, um, who runs and owns that, is a partner in it, came and checked us out at a show and was like, "I think you guys can do things. I'll start like putting you on gigs. Like there's tours going around, and I'll just get you on an opening slot." And we just hire a car, throw everything into the car, and just drive to like I don't know, Czech Republic, Milan, somewhere in Norway, and just do a gig, like just open a show for a package tour, and we'd essentially be the local opener, but we'd be the local opener from Australia.
That is a wild. That's a wild way of touring, man. I'm not gonna like.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah, it was nuts. Like it was the only chance we had though, because we were kind of in this rock and hard it was a rock and hard place because like no one really knew that the Australian scene existed in general for any kind of heavy music.
hmm.
And we would spend a long time like trying to fish for labels anywhere, and no one really wanted to sign us or release anything we had because they hadn't seen us play.
Mm.
But we couldn't play because we didn't have a record out and no one knew who we were. So it was like catch 22, and we're like, well, fuck this, let's just go and do it ourselves and play until someone knows who we are. And that's like we ended up on Epitaph that way as well. Like Epitaph in Europe saw us and we're like, yeah, we'll re-release your debut album, and like you can be an Epitaph band. And we're like, okay, cool. No one else wanted a piece of it. And from there, it just kind of it started in the similar way that it started in Australia. It just started in Europe first, and then in the States, and then it's just kind of snowballed that way. It's been a really organic process because you start literally at nothing. You start at ground zero. You have no foundations. You're left like on the side of the road with a sleeping bag and a car full of gear and 5 mates, and that's it. Like that's all you have. You don't have any money. You're hoping that the rider's okay, and if it's not, you're going to steal something off the headlining band's rider, and that's how you're surviving for 6 months.
Dude, that's funny. I mean, I think that is the way to do it. I mean, maybe it's because you and I both don't know any other way, but like that's literally the same thing. You just fucking go for it with your buds, you know?